be starting.
Great.
Let's see.
Welcome. Seems like we're live.
Here we go. All right.
It's good to be here again.
Yeah.
Another iteration of Remember Together, and another moment to come into ourselves more consciously. And take a moment to arrive, feel our bodies, wiggle our toes. Greet each other, open to one another. Yeah. I had something that I wanted to share, which is, you just mentioned, kind of related to how we started last time. Because last time you had brought up these beautiful images of things that inspire love and caring. And something that I was thinking about yesterday morning was how I very rarely remember how much it meant to be held as a child. And I think that it's hard to express. It's hard to even become cognizant of how much that means, like in development, in the experience of relationship. It's like a potency in that experience of being held that feels inexhaustible, and to be held by someone who cares for us. And there's something about that experience as a child, because you feel so enveloped, and the person who's holding you, it feels like, well, I don't know if it feels like, but it seems like, especially from our parents or for people who cared for us, there's a loving there for us that's beyond our capacity to know it. It's like that love of someone who chose to hold us as children went beyond what we were able to conceive of and to understand in like a maybe cognitive or mental way. And so I wanted to invite us to remember that we were held with love, and to let that change us, and to let it feel like something foundational about who we are. And then I was thinking about other things that have become foundational for how I interpret the world. A lot of times, judging the world in a kind of, I would say, kind of superficial way, thinking that the things that matter are, for instance, politics or material goods in some ways, and thinking that those things matter more than, for instance, having been held, and that they had more power than the tenderness of a mother's touch or kindness in a stranger's eyes. And so it feels like I often fall into that kind of fallacy where I think that those other things have more impact, have more of an effect, or more effectual. and maybe there's also kind of a misconception of what power is. Like, I think it's easy to feel subject to things in the world, and then can think of those things as having a power. Again, thinking about like government or money even. And yeah, and it feels like there's a fallacy present there, like a misplaced concreteness. And so I wanted to invite us to kind of question where the realness and what power is really, in the context of how much it can change us to open up to tenderness or to care, to being held. And so I wanted to ask how that landed with you and what that brings up.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Part of what lands with me is that remembering feels like you're asking, like the inquiry that you're making is like a calling to remember what it is that I'm made out of. That, and so there's a sense of the memory of being held. Like being held feels like what's alive in me today is made out of that. All the parts that have survived, so to speak, in me. And so there's a sense of like in the world of healing, trauma healing, there's the term resource. And resource is like an experience that helps to resource, basically, to bring energy, bring a sense of stability, ground, that can help in a way the life that is present to feel capacity. Capacity. And so when I listen to you and I sense my sense of being, the memory of being held, yeah, there's a deep, deep intimacy between my sense of capacity, like what it is that I'm capable of doing right now, and what of who I am, my capacity of who I am is, it feels like completely dependent on the places that I was held, basically. And so I remember the sense of my, like for example, right now that we're speaking, bringing lucidity to this neighborhood, there's a sense of the hours and hours that I experienced with our father, simply practicing talking about the like qualities of perception, basically. And so in a way, this inquiry, there's a sense of what it is that I sense you pointing at, that is the irrevocable reality that we are ancestral beings. We are not individuals with ancestors. We're made out of our parents and all the beings that help us. Everything, like absolutely everything, from making it possible for us to breathe, the whole architecture of our biology, all our organs, the earth, everything. And so there's that's what it is that arises for me, is that there's like that language that you're using around being held, it points at that reality of that we are made out of interdependence. We're made, that's a term that I became more awake to from Thomas Hubel. And so there's like a sense of then memory also of our childhood together, like growing up with you, just with all of the dimensions of the different ages and the things, and like memories of playing board games and sports, and and eating together at the table in very specific seats, and all kinds of things, just like seeing you were more, to me, I saw you when we were kids, you were more adept at cuddling with our mom, than I was. And I often felt like I missed it. Like I miss that feeling of closeness. But also that was without you being there and being in that kind of like nurturing being that was in touch with that it feels nice to lean, it feels nice to be embodied in that way. And that it can also be seen in how growing up you were a dancer, like you had like dance was like a very natural thing. It was very embodied in that way. It was like living life, but a freedom of expression in certain ways, and like a lot of aliveness. And so there's a sense, it navigates all the way through all of that for me. Like our siblingship, our ancestry, like the archaeology of our biology and our humanity, that we depend on the evolution of all of life that resulted in the species that we are. And yeah, so it has like a quality of remembering who, or like an exercise of remembering who I am.
Yeah, it feels that. Thank you. That's a lot. It's beautiful. I love the idea that we can become awake to the ways that we are held by our ancestors in our body, and that our body is kind of like a direct reflection of that, of those who have come before us and out of which we have been born, and that in some kind of miraculous way our spontaneous gestures, they also contain them. So it's like a reciprocal holding. It's like my turn to embody, and having been held by the love, I am now also able to project part of that essence from them that lives within me. So that ancestral piece feels really, really potent. And so does what you said about about the cuddling, but particularly because I was just thinking how, you know, how it feels to not be held, right? How did it feel also to not feel held? Um, and there's a lot, there's a lot there in that experience of just, oh, like, let me imagine what it feels like to not be held in the context of a relationship of love, of support. Um, and that can be devastating. And it can also directly affect our agency, which I think was threaded. That connection between being held and agency feels like it was present in your response also, because you were talking about the capacity that you have in the present being rooted in the experience of having been held, or in that the fact that you were held. And so the scarcity of agency and the crisis of agency that we can live through, being related and being a window into an experience of having not been held, or also just wanting to be held more than we were. And yeah, there's something there. I feel it in my chest and my throat. And I also just see how this opportunity of having conversations this way that we've given ourselves, but now that we're sharing, is itself like a type of holding gesture as well. We're holding a relationship. We're also holding love and values and care. And yeah, there's something beautiful about acknowledging one's in the implicit caring in our experience. And yeah, and that seems present in this endeavor as we're doing it. So yeah, that came up. And but I wanted to return to a little bit to just the experience of not being held, or like imagining what it would have been like to feel like I would have liked to have been held more, or moments where I knew that I needed to be held and I wasn't, for whatever reason. And so the lack of that experience informing who I am today. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of what's alive for me is, as we embark on this journey of sharing our relationship, this part of our relationship, and like this, there's the experience of opening to discovering a different way of being held, meaning all the impact that might come from anybody who watches and participates, um, and that I feel um, I feel like two dimensions of the pain or the longing present and in me right now. Um, One is that in this new relationship, basically our new dimension of our relationship, but also being in front of others in a way. There's a sense of the longing that I can feel layers of like muting that are here, like a kind of lack of transparency, specifically as it pertains to to expressing the pain and the longing that is there. Yeah, and so there's like a sense of a calling, a feeling like a calling to express, to say, to share the sense of the pain or the ouch, and like and one of the pieces that I am being like where I feel like I'm being born right now is that for a very long time I have considered pain and suffering and this kind of crying as a problem, as a problem that I'm experiencing, and also as something that if I share it, it might become a problem to others. And and there's something where I'm taking a sense of agency in myself, in the sense of the narrative around all of this, is to say that I am discovering, and I am grateful to places where I've received some of this information, but that I'm discovering a little bit more space in being able to acknowledge that my tears or my longing or my pain, the ache that is there, is a longing, and is the means of connection that is like the essential path of my being. So it's like it's a very different experience for me, where it's like that all of that longing and all that pain that I've hidden for most of my life, choosing to like open a little bit more and saying, this is essential. My ow tells me something about important relationship between the uniqueness of the shape that I am and life, and being here with you, my brother. And so there's a sense of that and as I feel the tears, there's also the sense that my longing or the pain that I feel is, I can feel that it's about the past. And then I also feel there's like a layer that's about the future. That there's a sense of an ache of what hurts in the past, and then there's a sense of an ache of a hope for things to be different, but that comes flavored with it's a very similar kind of feeling in my heart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, so just I'm, just making space to include the sense that there are parts of this experience that or like of this neighborhood that are like criminalized, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that are
Mm-hmm.
and that I feel like a kind of tentativeness that is here to in the process of showing, of actually
Mm-hmm.
showing, yeah, more.
Mm.
Hmm. Hmm. That's part of what's here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for taking that step to acknowledge that there is that criminalization, that muting, that um, turning away. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just kind of acknowledging what it feels like to exist within a constellation in which that response is produced and then learned and propagated, which is the response that pain, that experience of distance or of separation is something to conceal, and everything that that means for our functioning in relationship. And yeah, I feel it alive even in seeing how I learned to be, how open to be, and what it means to be natural, and how safe it feels to be my entirety of my being, and to be witnessed in that. And yeah, there's something hopeful as well about having these gestures be pointing towards the recovery of a place where we can rest in who we are, um, as opposed to continuing a pattern of criminalization of what our experience of the experience that comes up. And there's this dimension of being willing for that vulnerability to be witnessed with one another and also with the world more broadly. Um, that feels connected to what you were saying about that the realness is actually residing in that longing or in that pain or in that separation itself. And yeah, and it brings to mind something that I was thinking about last night, because um, I was speaking with someone who I met very recently, and she's somewhat older. She's probably in her 70s or so, and she was a teacher for most of her life, and she worked with children, but she never had children of her own. And there's something that is brought up just now, because as we're witnessed intergenerationally, it seems like there are some implicit patterns or dynamics that show up, like a teacher or a parent feels self-conscious about either setting an example or being the one from whom resource arises. And it feels like in that dynamic, it could be perceived as wrong for that person in that position to disclose their own vulnerabilities and to disclose the places where they need support or where they're feeling challenge. And so I thought about how potent it feels to have intergenerational dialogue and talks and listening to one another, but particularly within the context of opening up to one's vulnerabilities. Because it feels connected to this piece where we think we need to take on a certain role, and so that role then defines where we're willing to go as far as how much to share, how much to disclose, and what we need to be, how we need to function within the context of that role. And
the role of being a teacher.
Yeah, role of being a teacher, but also the role of just being someone who's a caregiver in a way. Like if I care for you maybe as a parent, or just someone who's maybe responsible or feels responsible for someone else, then that person would be quite reluctant to display their own fears or their own insecurities or their own challenges and their own vulnerabilities. And so it just feels kind of like this opening to start to dispel with the myth of what it means to be that person, sharing that. And so I feel the invitation through this greater level of vulnerability that we're having, and that you're having just now, and that you're showing so beautifully, of rewriting the narrative for what it means to help.
Yeah, man. Those last words that you just said, rewriting the narrative of what it means to help. Those words right there might mark one of the biggest shifts of consciousness that is happening on Earth right now. There is a in the age of information that we're in, with all of the data and everything, there's an increase of transparency that is just happening. And with that transparency, there is, and all of that data, more and more important. It's more self-evidently important how much impact we can have on each other with how we handle disclosing information. And we've had all kinds of ideas of what it means to help. And all of the roles: help as teachers, help as policemen, help as immigration officers, help as presidents, as teachers, all the of all kinds, spiritual teachers, therapists, all kinds of roles, parents,
Yeah.
help as parents. And there's something there that you're pointing at, that there's a birth that is happening through all of this information. The information is like bringing up the sense of crisis, of collective crisis. And that collective crisis, as far as I can feel, is our channeling of the energies of the collective trauma that is part of our ancestry. We come from development that has tons of levels of challenges and things, that levels of violence and all kinds of persecution and all kinds of things that have, through the thousands and thousands of years, and all the way through the animal kingdom, and the plant kingdom, and all the way through. And so there's a lot of basically history, and as that we are with this information age, like this information process, we are unconsciously challenging ourselves as a humanity to learn to metabolize our history that is here with us. And the words how, what to change the definition of what it means to help each other, like that, it rings very like deeply inside my being, in that part of the message that I received as I developed as a helper, as a therapist helper, and my own training that I had, and all these different things that I've done, was was based on the process of showing up as a particular kind of person that is the good enough parent, like the shape that the person needs in order to be able to have them feel kind of like ground and support that helps them. And that is, on the one hand, it's like a great structure that we can learn a lot from. And then it comes with a massive liability if we don't include this change of definition that I'm feeling right here present, and that we're exploring, which is, I help by being transparent all the way from the most inside of my being, as I'm with you.
Yeah.
And so it changes the space that we're here. Like, we're not here to just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, about who knows how many things, but we're here to learn, to slow down and be with each other with everything that is already here. And so how does that change? Like, that's the question that I have in my mind. This statement that you made is like a massive question for me in my own role as wanting to be a helper in the world. And what does that mean? And now with this podcast, I'm sharing much more about myself than I ever have. There's just like, it's like a different platform. And how is that going to impact? Yeah. And so there's and that is the you and I have a history of basically digging out or feeling things that are very deep inside, and then showing them to each other and learning to love. Like, we have years of doing that with each other across our life. And that's part of our ancestry that is here. That is part of
Mm-hmm.
the like the earth that we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I can feel, that's part of why we're here,
Yeah.
like why this is actually happening, and that um and why I feel motivated. And this is, it's like most narratives, sharing about these difficult things is the last thing that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And yet here we're paving a way and discovering a way in which I want to tell you something,
Mm-hmm.
like I want to tell you something. and I'm saying that in two ways. I'm saying that in the context of what I was just saying, and also in
Mm-hmm.
the way that I, as I'm here with you, and as you're talking about the roles and feeling all these things, and we talk about our childhood,
Mm-hmm.
I'm opening inside to a dimension of something that I have implicitly held. As you and I are starting to embark on doing like a project together, because as
Mm-hmm.
brothers, that's also part of what we're doing right now. We're
Yeah.
not just sharing here, but we're working together, like in
Mm-hmm.
certain ways. And there's the echo that I feel of our childhood here,
Mm-hmm.
and the way that I, parts of how I lived
Mm-hmm.
our childhood,
Mm-hmm.
and a baked in worry inside me that I don't know if I've ever expressed, you know, that is very specifically, you already, I mean, I don't need to explain this to you, but I felt very responsible as the older brother, like many older siblings, um, to try to get a handle on things and try to make things better in some way, but in the process of doing that, I felt myself needing to leave life. Like, and by leave life, I mean like there's moments in which we were kind of like being kids.
Yeah.
And then when I felt like I was on task, that I needed to like go tend to a worry, or like being, like paralyzed by some worry about something with our parents or something,
Mm-hmm.
I had to leave to, like, I felt like it was like going on a mission, like to go try to do something about the stress.
Mm-hmm.
That if the stress of our parents was not going to be contained enough, basically, everything was going to be worse. But at this, in the same dimension of that, I felt a worry that I couldn't take you with me
When you left.
when I left.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I felt that worry, man. And there was this longing that I wanted to stay together. You know, yeah, I wanted to stay
Mm-hmm.
together. And there was this strong feeling of like responsibility, like under the word, kind of like
Mm-hmm.
to try to need to go deal with something. And with the, all the emergencies and the emotional, all the layers, that we grew up with all kinds of
Mm-hmm.
stuff, including all the love and everything. But there's like a piece there that um, I feel sadness
Mm-hmm.
basically right now. I feel sadness that that I had to leave, like the feeling of having to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the urgency, with an urgency, by through a sense of like some kind of implicit urgency. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. Yeah. That's tough. That's that's painful.
yeah.
Yeah. It's deep, very deep. It's foundational.
Yeah.
And I can't help but notice that in your desire to bring me along, there's this natural faculty of loving and caring.
Mm. Mm.
In just having that be a part of your nature, to even feel the responsibility, to even feel the
Right. Yeah. The care.
mm-hmm.
That's that. Dude, you're grabbing it. You're like the thing that you said at the beginning about being held and like the memory of being held
Mm-hmm.
on top of the ground, the earth of being held. I was reaching out to hold our family and to hold
Mm-hmm.
you and to, you know what I mean? Like that. I can feel that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you are holding us.
Oh my God, man.
And you're holding us now.
Yeah.
And, and you're holding me now.
Mhm, mhm. Mm.
Yeah. And there's something just there are many things that you've said that just feel very important. I like a culture shift in the broader social experiment that we participate in as humans. So there's that scope, but vertically linked directly with our development, with our childhood, with our family constellation, um, and the environment in which we learn to either, well, to care in different ways, because we care naturally, but we learn and we absorb ways in which that caring can be expressed safely, in ways in which it's appropriate. But I also just feel grateful that you bring this piece from our childhood, particularly, and this precious moment of disclosure that you have just manifested, that you have just invited us to see you, to feel the child that you were, to feel the wonderful, loving human being that lived those experiences, the limitations, the stress, the friction and the conflict that came up as a natural result of just being a part of a family and of witnessing adults and other people, quote unquote, in charge who have their own limitations, and then what it feels like. And I can't help but think that there's so much that's nonverbal about these processes, and that we're kind of learning to reappropriate our language capacity, our language faculty, in order to discover, to uncover so much experience that we had. And it feels like a challenge because I may never have spoken these words in this way, right? And it's like, oh no, and yet it's a gift as well, because there's this fabric that we belong to, and all that we're doing is we're making it explicit through this strange ability to speak through words. So anyway, there's some part of this, it's just kind of discovering anew both experiences that I had, but also the ability to even talk about it. And it feels archaeological in that way as well. Like, oh, we're uncovering, picking this up, and what did we find here? There's no word for this artifact. Like, we have to name it. And yet when we name it, we also we're also recognizing it because it's not new, right? It belongs to us already. So there's a beautiful poetry in everything that you're bringing up, and it's also just so healing to hear your sensitivity and your openness and your willingness to touch that part and your willingness to bring it here right now to us, to me. And it's so valuable, not least because I remember, you know, because I remember some of this. I remember some of what it felt like to witness our context, our emotional constellation, and the environment that we lived within. I remember what it felt like to witness you in your responses and how I understood what I thought you were living in those moments. And there's something so deep here for me because there was a very painful conclusion that I reached at some point, I think in my early childhood, where I concluded there was nothing to be done about this separation, about this distance, about this unbridgeable gap between us relationally. And so, having concluded that there was nothing I could do, I think I did two things. I retreated, and I also blamed myself. Like it was me, you know? There's something wrong with me, that I can't make this right, that I can't bridge this distance between us, between our relationship with my mom, with my dad, with you. And it feels like there's something so core about that move that we can make as children, where something that we can't deal with suddenly becomes, or something that we feel unable to change or to do, is suddenly a reflection of our very worth and of our substance as beings. And I see that I did that move in relation to how our family was being held. So I feel it's a gift right now. It's an opportunity to remember and to recover and to recover that, because the truth is that that uh, that I don't want to abscond, you know, that that's actually my nature, is to reach out, is to bring about this essence into the world and touch you and to touch my loved ones, and to the degree that I can, to touch the world. And so it feels like there's a type of transmutation occurring, which is a process, and it's continuous, you know, and we're on a continuum, it's a spectrum, but we come and then we reach and then we feel again the certain shyness maybe, or we remember the pain of what it felt like to feel like I blamed myself, it was my fault, or just the pain of having decided to retreat, and therefore the shame of of everything. So although it is a fluctuating process, I feel quite hopeful, and this is a beautiful, meaningful gesture in family for us to continue to open to that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Mama. Yeah, I can feel the I can feel this longing, like this. Well, what we're doing right now is what part of what the words "remember together" mean, and the beauty that, and healing, and resource, and realness, and stability, and life, like life-giving.
Yeah.
So it's and it's maybe the practice of holding, holding each other.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
a revitalizing kind of hold, embrace.
Mhm.
You also mentioned the hearth, which is like a place in which we're nourished, a place in which we're held.
Yeah, the hearth.
Mhm. The
Yeah,
home. Mhm.
so freeing. There's two things. One is like, it's so freeing to just to be able to include, to feel. When I hear you say this piece of I turned like against myself, or I blame myself, and I said that I was at fault,
Mhm.
or that there was something broken in me, or something like that. Um, when you say that, and that we are able to talk about it, I feel like there's like a balloon of hope that
Mm.
starts to like, just like just blow up a little bit, just
Uh-huh.
to inflate,
Mhm.
in the sense that, like, if we can talk about that,
Mhm.
and if we can be with that, then like that is the ground upon which I can then include the suffering of the world.
Mm. Mhm. Yes.
You know?
There's a renewed, and it feels bottomless confidence in the buoyancy
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
that caring, and of
Yeah.
that holding, of that love.
Yeah. It's like a weaving of threads. Every
Mhm.
time that one of us is like vulnerable, there's like a thread that reaches and then comes back, and there's like a, weaving.
Yeah, there's a reciprocity, and like
Yeah. Yeah.
a dialectic, maybe also, like, oh, we're, yeah, finding new grounds based on both participating and witnessing. And there's
Yeah.
something. Mhm.
Yeah. We're alchemizing our, like, the history that we are consciously,
Mhm.
or we're participating in the inertia that is evolution consciously, to metabolize and, um, pulsate, including our history. And as our histories become more transparent, then we have more room to breathe and to be with like in this field that we are in right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it feels like everybody that is here, it's like before we did it, the feeling was we were at a table having a nice conversation with some unhappy and kind of like depressed family members
Mm-hmm.
at the same table, like
It feels a little uncomfortable at times, maybe.
it's just slightly uncomfortable. And then as these pieces start to get spoken, the longing and the shame and like these
Mm-hmm.
layers start to be brought in, then suddenly it's like, oh my God, we're at the table together. Like we're at the table together.
Yeah.
We're at the table together, hermano.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all of that content that we have chosen to compost becomes a resource and becomes a like a driving component for our revitalization, like that aliveness that you're speaking of. It's grounded in that, which feels paradoxical because before we disclose things and before we become open, it feels like those same things are actually what's keeping us. Like those things are the things by which we feel entrapped, or which we feel ensnared by, limited by, through this alchemy, this alchemical process that you're describing, and suddenly become the source of nourishment and the source for that vitality.
And
And it's like
so that's
that's the ground, that's the earth.
the earth, and that is the answer to the inquiry of a new definition of what it means to help.
Mm-hmm. Yes, beautifully.
Yeah,
That is the rewriting of that narrative.
of that narrative. Yeah, because it's self-evident. It's self-evident. We include what is here, and because what is here is included, we are together. And because we are together, we consciously get to participate as life, with life, rather than as life feeling separate from life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the willingness to celebrate, the ability to be conscious of reasons to celebrate, which are plenty. They become clear, as does our irrepressible longing to play and to be joyful and to be curious, all of these things that we can associate with the state of feeling transparency also. Yeah.
It's like the loving resuscitation of our of the children that we are.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. That's wonderful. Yeah, well, many loving teachers have spoken of that need to return to that childlike existence. Yeah, and there's a beautiful opportunity for that childlike nature to implement what I think is an innate faculty, which is forgiveness also.
Yeah.
Forgiveness,
That's
which
the
feels like a
greatest
part of
gift.
that, and part of something to maybe continue to explore, because the truth is that when I go back to that place in which I chose to retreat and I chose to blame myself, that unforgivability was implicit in the way that I conceived of
Totally.
myself.
Exactly, like a locking mechanism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's lots.
That's very juicy right there.
Yeah, there's lots to continue. We can continue into the next our next session, but it's been very rich, very very healing. Thank you, Adrian.
Gracias, hermano. I have this feeling like I am because you are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel it too. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Muy bien, hermano. Wow.
Bueno.
Well, thank you for invoking the theme of being held and the experience of not being held.
Mm-hmm.
Like that field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That field. And thank you to everybody else who is here with us, including all of existence and all of our ancestors, known and unknown, and all of existence, all beings that make it possible for these utterings to palpitate.
Gracias.
We have a webpage that'll be in the description, is in the description of the past episodes, and there's a newsletter that can be signed. You can sign up on, and people can sign up on, and
That's right. It's very beautiful. Adrian made a wonderful website, so please visit. It's done with love.
Yeah, we're cooking life. So, and people's your feedback, your responses, your testimonials, your everything help us feel the alive ground that we're swimming inside of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to everyone who's reached out and everyone who these budding heart-to-heart moments have impacted. Thank you.
And we'll plan to be here next Monday, same time, live, unless we announce otherwise. Generally weekly on Mondays, and we'll see what becomes. We'll see what becomes.
Hasta la próxima.
Hasta